Hey, what's up, everybody? This is another discussion with C3 Films. My name is Chris, and this is...
Cheryl.
And today we also have a guest star,
Will.
and we are going to be talking about the live-action One Piece from Netflix. So we are going into spoiler territory, so if you haven't seen the live-action One Piece, maybe at least watch that. There's a good chance we might also get into spoilers for the anime of One Piece. So full disclosure, I actually have not seen One Piece anime at all outside of a few episodes of the 4Kids dub back in like maybe 2004 or something like that. So this is going to be an interesting discussion because, as you can see, Cheryl is one person that is a One Piece fan. Will with me is also a One Piece fan. And I don't know anything about One Piece outside of what I've seen in the live action show. So we're going to have a talk about that, and there's a chance that we might get into the anime. So if you guys are worried about any kind of potential spoilers, you have been warned. But let's go ahead and jump right into this. So, Cheryl, I know that you are a big One Piece fan, right?
I think so. I'm scared because Will is here and I think he's a bigger fan than me. So I just want to live up to it.
What would make you say that, Cheryl?
Oh, man. Okay, so I used to have the flag, the straw hat pirate flags, and I used to have a chopper hat, but my boyfriend made me get rid of it, and so I'm sad now that I can't show it off. But I did have it in the background of our Pirates episode.
Yes, you did. I remember seeing that flat when I met you. And Will has something else to show.
Yes. Well, sometimes we're just, better fans.
Oh my god.
Just good fans.
I have things, like little things somewhere. I just didn't take them out because
Sure.
they're.
I believe you.
Yeah. I do. It's real. It's true. But we're here to talk about the show, so let's talk about the show.
Yeah.
Chris, so I know you're not like a nut like me and Will, but I guess like what was your opinion of the show, the live action show, without really knowing much about the anime or the manga?
All right. So, right off the bat, I remember thinking to myself that it was funny because the live action show feels like an anime. Like, it leans into, like, the ridiculous nature of what anime is. And I think that caught me off guard. Because, when you see these live action anime adaptations, a lot of times, they don't work a lot of times, right? And one of the other ones that came out recently was the Cowboy Bebop one. And Cowboy Bebop I had seen. And if you had asked me, like, a couple of years ago if I thought One Piece or Cowboy Bebop would make a better live action adaptation, I would have told you Cowboy Bebop. Because it's sci-fi, but it's more grounded, and you feel you can get away with more and have people like jump on board and be believable. But that wasn't the case. Like, they grounded it too much to the point where they kind of muted these characters from what they were in the anime, and people recognized that. But with One Piece, they took like the opposite approach. The actor that they got to play Luffy feels like an anime character. And like, I don't know much about Luffy, but I was watching him, I said, I can see this guy being just like how Luffy is in the anime. He's very, very boisterous. He's very, very, like, he is so daggone, like, wholesome. And you just can't help but love him. And then you meet these ridiculous cast of characters. Everybody has multicolored hair, and you meet these characters some that even look the way you look now, where they look like humans, but then they might have like animal ears, and then they might have like whiskers or something on their nose or whatever. Or you have shark people. People have different eyes all over the place. Like, it's just, they were just like, we are going full on like ridiculous fantasy, and we're not gonna like worry about it. Hey, Zoro fights with 3 swords. Guess what? We're gonna have him fight with 3 swords at some point. Who cares? It's not something you would normally see, but you're gonna see it in this. And so, like, I know about these characters from like a very loose perspective, but I hadn't really like I hadn't really seen how they would interact or see how they would be in the show. And so the ridiculous nature of like even the villains with like the huge claws and everything else like that, like they lean into the ridiculous nature, and it kind of just allows you to sit back and be like, all right, I'm along for the ride. Let's do it. And I'm already have a like sensibility towards anime anyway, but it seems like more people also kind of felt that way, that it was easy to just get lost in. So I found myself really wanting to just keep watching, but then also like the way the characters are done and the characterization of all these characters, like I love this crew. This crew outside of Usopp is freaking amazing.
Keep talking, keep talking.
So like I just couldn't stand Usopp, but no lie, like yo, Zoro's my dude, Nami's my girl, and Mihawk, that's my motherfucker right there. Mihawk is the man. That's my man right there. Me and Mihawk, we get down. So yeah,
he's
no,
not part of the crew.
I don't care. Like, yo, anytime Mihawk's on screen, I'm just like, yeah, let's go, Mihawk. Me and you, we can ride. So yeah. Anyways, that's how I felt about. That's how like the general feeling that I had going in. I don't want to talk too much without like giving you guys some time to like kind of talk about your own feelings as people who have liked the anime. But I will say the one thing that I did not like about the anime outside of Usopp was or I didn't enjoy it as much was Arlong Park. By the time we got to Arlong Park, I thought that Arlong Park was the one time when I saw it felt like it had been watered down, and I had no knowledge of the original anime, but it felt watered down in the live action. So when I finished Arlong Park, the first thing I said was, I'm gonna watch the anime version of Arlong Park. That's what I want to see, because I want to see how they did this, because I get the feeling that this was even crazier as like in the anime. So that's like my initial stuff, but like I want to kick it to you guys, Cheryl, like Will, like how did you guys feel?
Well, about
Spoilers in the. Oh yes.
Oh yeah, spoilers. I think. Did we
Spoilers,
say that?
everyone.
Yeah.
I don't know, but he said we get in spoiler territory. But this was for spoilers for Arlong Park. In the anime, they do not have a cookout where no one's in the pool.
I was gonna say.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that I really missed Hachi, because he was my favorite Arlong crew character.
So he's credited as existing there somewhere in like the party, but he wasn't like an active character.
Yeah.
And
it's
I agree with you.
disappointing.
I do miss having Hachi there.
That was one of the best parts of Arlong Park. It was the battle between Hachi and Zoro. So,
Oh wait, so there was a whole character missing?
yeah.
Pretty much. Well, Cheryl, you might want to speak on this as well, because the way that they had to do the individual pieces of the arcs is fascinating, because, you know, just doing some rough math, the first 8 episodes that they're doing for the live action is covering 44 episodes of the anime. So you're doing, if we say roughly 20 minutes per episode, obviously there's like backtracking stuff and whatnot, but just as rough estimates, you have a little over 50 minutes in every episode of the live action. That's roughly 5.5 episodes of anime per, and they added extra stuff. To fit runtime, you're cutting out at least half the material. So please, Cheryl, talk about how you felt about it. But for instance, they kind of combined 2 arcs, because the Baradier arc, they cut out an entire crew interaction with Don Krieg, who was somewhat off-screened by Mihawk, but not done so in the anime.
Mm-hmm. Honestly, it didn't really bother me, because I felt like they did a good job piecing it together and keeping the things that were really important. And Arlong is definitely an important character, because he directly impacts the development of Nami's character. So he's like the first real like big boss character in the One Piece series. So I felt like it was appropriate to end with Arlong. I think maybe it could have used another episode just so it didn't water down the Arlong section as much. But like otherwise, I just like overall feel like they did such a good job of keeping really close to the source material and only cutting out the stuff that was either like less interesting or just like something that could be not missed. Yeah, right. Should have done that.
Wait, we're talking about the villain,
I'm
right?
reading chat.
Oh, okay. I was like, I remember that villain. That was the guy that had the claws, right?
Kuro, Captain Kuro.
Yeah, I was like, I felt like the reason he was doing that was because he couldn't touch his glasses because he normally had blades on his fingertips.
Yes,
So I was like,
that's
okay,
why
that
they
makes
do it.
sense.
Yeah.
So I was like, yeah. So I thought that was cool, but
Yeah.
I like that arc too. That was fun.
Yeah. So one of the biggest things is they kind of rewrite things. Like, obviously you condense early parts. The way they handled Cert Village is very different. I know I was talking to Zane, who's in chat, obviously off camera, and talking about how we kind of liked how they kind of morphed it into a horror little show instead of the way it was handled in the anime. Because to be fair, Usopp is my favorite One Piece character, and he's not a super popular character. And as Ray and Chad had put, he's meant to kind of be insufferable in the early parts of the show. As he grows. His arc is not the best, and it was kind of interesting how they decided to do that. And also, if you're gonna condense something and remove something, removing the larger Don Krieg aspect from the Baratier and kind of incorporating Arlong is smart. Just because if Arlong is this big bad of East Blue, it would make sense if he has influence outside of just his island, so other people know about him. He has reach and influence elsewhere, and you kind of get that aspect when you see him show up at the Baratier, or when you see like his lackeys go over and capture Buggy for information, right? So it's a very interesting way to do it. I have very strong opinions on Arlong Park, though, and I don't want to take too much time if we want to swing back to Cheryl.
No, go for it.
Sure. Well, I was gonna say something. Yeah. I want to jump back in for a second. So, like, one of the things that, and this is probably an anime thing, but they don't actually address. For one, when they beat Buggy, they kind of just leave him, and I'm like, Buggy took over an entire village and messed up a lot of people. Like, why are you guys just leaving this guy here? Like, y'all at least get, like, call Marines or someone to come and pick this dude up. But, like, if you just leave him, what's to stop him from doing this stuff again? And at the end of Arlong Park, when he fights Arlong, like, we don't see Arlong, but I'm pretty sure Luffy didn't kill him. So I'm like, so we just not gonna arrest Arlong?
Luffy's a wholesome boy. Why would he kill people?
Exactly. So he wouldn't kill Arlong.
And he's fairly libertarian. Why would he call the cops?
He would never call the Marines. Sorry, that is not.
Marines are evil. Look at Axan Morgan. Look at Nezu and his mousy pirates trying to like take bribes and stuff. Why would he call them?
But his granddad is good.
Yeah, but like,
listen.
He's the kind of
some good cops. ACAB. We gotta talk about this, Chris. We gotta talk about these things.
Yeah.
Okay?
But that's like the thing.
ACAB is a real thing.
He's not really the kind of person that would just like turn in someone. Like he's the kind of person like he's almost so simple-minded that he wouldn't even think of doing that because he in his mind took care of it and he's going to move on. Like I beat this person up. I told him a thing or two and now I'm going to go be on my merry way. On my merry way.
Oh, cute. I got it. Oh my god. So I was just like thinking to myself though, if this guy is so bad, like we can't just leave him to escape and do this again to someone else. But I mean, it is shonen. Like a lot of characters pop back up eventually. It's very interesting because like we were talking about this in the car on the ride to your place the other day, and we were talking about how Luffy is very different than the other shonen protagonists from the big three. Like Luffy shares similarities with more Naruto than Ichigo, but Ichigo, Naruto, and Luffy are all very different shonen protagonists. And I was saying that Luffy, if he had any kind of comparison to a shonen protagonist that I could think of, it'd probably be Goku, and that's mainly because of how simple-minded Luffy tends to be. And I was told that also Luffy has like a really strong feeling towards his friends, which you do get to see at some point when Nami is in trouble, and then Luffy, I do like the scene. I was told that it's a little different in the anime, but the scene where Luffy comes and he puts his hat on Nami and says, you know, I'll help you and everything, and then he has this like moment where he's like, I'll help you, and it feels cheesy, but it still feels cool because when they walk up and they see like the group standing there, and then Luffy shows up, and it's just like, all right, we about to go to Arlong Park, and I saw that, I was like, that's a manga panel. that's a manga panel right there where all of them are like waiting and Luffy shows up. I was like, man, I gotta see this. This is why I have to see Arlong Park anime.
From what I remember, I think actually that scene with when he puts the hat on Nami is almost shot for shot
So,
to the anime.
Here's where my big problem comes with Arlong Park. So earlier on in the series, I feel like, say with Sanji's backstory, you really kind of get that emotion where Zeph eats his own leg to give, make sure to keep this child alive, right?
Yeah.
And that is very, very almost shot for shot, very similar to how it's handled in the anime, right? Now, that the Help Me scene that's very famous in Arlong Park is shot close to shot for shot, where they do a lot of things, kind of like when Luffy says we're going and the crew says yes, and they kind of do the split screen and everything. But they shorten certain things, like they don't have Nami being as standoffish about accepting help, because that's kind of like her whole big thing. And one issue I have specifically with Arlong Park is with the choices they've done in rewriting and shortening it. I felt like we don't get nearly the emotional impact that we do in the anime, compared to like in the Baratie arc, where I felt a decent amount of emotional impact by comparison. I personally don't like the choice they made in which, and this is something you will find out, is her trying to help everyone and not being against the village was not the case in the anime. It's not some big secret, right?
Oh, the village knows?
Yeah.
So
Oh.
the whole thing is they come to grips with the fact that they have to go fight, not just because Nami's money is stolen, that Nami was saving up to try to buy their freedom that they were never going to get, but they were so tired of having one girl fight for everyone and her having this fight alone that they said, we can't let her fight alone anymore, and we have to go. I don't care if we're going to die, right? And that's so much more impactful than these people thinking that she's some bad person for that. And it's just, it really removes this emotional impact that I felt like we had. Genzo is a much less impactful character. He's the sheriff. You're
Right.
like, why does he have all these scars? I don't know. Maybe because when they were children, they were Nami didn't join them on her own. She was kidnapped by the Arlong Pirates because of her powers, her abilities with the maps. And Genzo tries to stop them, and they almost kill him, and that's why he has all those scars.
Yeah.
And Nami stops him from helping by begging people to stop dying like her mom did. And all these things are ripped out, and there's all this emotion taken out. And while the Help Me scene is almost one for one, and I'm almost done with this point, they go very quickly from her saying to leave and putting the hat on her head and going, where she has this whole thing where you can hear her voice crack and break down as she's throwing sand at him, telling him to leave over and over again, because she can't come to grips. She's so used to fighting on her own. She's not used to other people fighting for her. So it feels like they rushed that scene. Plus, she runs up on Arlong Park with them. And I'm not against Nami also fighting, but in the anime where they run up and she's still there, she has to collect herself, and only partway through the fight does she come back. I feel like it's much more symbolic that she's not with them, because her fighting on her own is over and she's letting other people fight the fight, and she's not still there. She comes back later. But I feel like there were so many key emotional notes that were just stripped away for funny things like having a cookout in the back and stuff.
Yeah.
Right.
And fishmen are an allegory for racism and slavery, but not like that.
Okay. I
There's-
was gonna get into that in a second.
There's also this part where like Luffy goes into the tower, and he actually goes into the room while he's fighting Arlong, and it's the map room where Nami was forced to make all the maps, and it pisses him off, and it gives him kind of like this adrenaline rush to like kick his ass. So that was like another thing that was kind of missed, like in the live action, like he's just doing it because like I'm doing this for my friend, and like no questions asked. But in the anime, it's very triggering for him, and that's what activates him into like wanting to take action, because he's otherwise like a not violent guy, and like you have to really piss him off and trigger him to make him defend someone and like kick someone's butt. And that's like
Right.
one
Like
of the endearing things about him.
He picks up a quill that's covered in blood because she was forced to draw these maps until she physically couldn't. And he sees this room as a prison cell for her. And he stops fighting Arlong to destroy the room because she will never be free as long as the room exists. And Nami sees the falling furniture, and everyone's just like, why is that a big fight? and she starts crying because she realizes that he is setting her free.
Jesus.
And none of that's in the anime. So I saw interviews with the showrunner. The showrunner said he loves this arc and it's an S tier arc because I saw him rank the arcs. He's a liar if this is how he writes it. He is an outright liar if he said this is an S tier arc in the anime and writes it like this.
Jeez.
No respect.
Yeah, I have to say that's crazy to hear because, yeah, I mean, I did like the fact that Luffy wasn't strong enough to beat Arlong, so he's just like, I'll just destroy this instead. But it sounds like you have a problem with that. Does Arlong actually get beat in the anime, or does it have something
Luffy
similar?
kicks Arlong's ass.
Oh.
Yeah.
And they don't all mob boss fight people. There's a lot of 1v1 fights because they should be able to beat people 1v1, but I kind of get it because they don't have a lot of time for this choreography stuff.
Yeah.
So I'm not as mad. But he wins 1v1 fights, and so does Zoro, and so does Sanji, and so does Usopp. Usopp, whose fight is neutered in Arlong Park when it's his big coming around moment on his really good fight versus Chu.
I have to agree that it was a little weird that his idea of beating Arlong was, I'll just break the building then while you're in it, because that's not really how Luffy rolls. He just wins.
Interesting.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Right.
Like, he's the
It's
main
just-
character, too. Like, well, okay, I'm not going to spoil it, but, like...
Well, yeah, I guess I just thought it was interesting from like an outside perspective because we normally see these shonen fights where people who should not be able to win fights. So I was like, oh, it's kind of interesting. Like Arlong is just that dude, and he's like, I can't beat you, but I'm gonna destroy everything that you built. And so he's like, I'm gonna beat you in a different way. So like conceptually, like to me that's interesting because we don't normally see that in like shonen protagonists. Like usually they have like some type of power up that comes out of nowhere, and then that's the reason they're able to beat somebody, like a QB Nine Tails or a Hollow Ichigo mask. So
So like you say, oh, go ahead, Cheryl.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I mean, that's kind of true, but like I had mentioned, it's always like from triggering something in him that makes him so mad that like the person that he's fighting with is so unjust, and that's the part that I like. He just doesn't come from nowhere. Like they fight, they keep fighting, and he could be losing, and then you just do one thing, he snaps, and like now you're in it.
yeah, see, and like that's like when I was hearing you guys just now, that's one thing that stood out to me that you said where he like that's one reason I like Nami not being there, because when Nami is there, she tells him that, and I didn't know that she wasn't there in the anime, but when you guys explained it to me, it's great because if he gets there and Nami's not there, he just sees it and has to put it together himself. And that's kind of worse. Because like what he's imagining is like worse than anything that she could just say. He is just seeing it in his own mind, on his own, drawing his own conclusions. So yeah, that makes sense. And it would be nice because we haven't seen the actor that's portraying Luffy. We didn't really see that side of him, right? We didn't see that in the live action, him have that kind of full on anger, pissed off. We saw him get like, I'm going to fight for my friends. But it never felt like anything more than that, right? It didn't feel like pure unadulterated rage.
Right.
Yeah, and like the rage is one of the things that like I really like about Luffy is when he gets so angry and his eyes, they get like so like his eyes change, and then that's when you're like, oh, you
So one thing
messed up.
I love Iñaki. I think Iñaki does this really good. He does this really good. The goofy Luffy, which is most of the time he's like that, and he's very personable and things like that. But there's a switch flip, like Cheryl was talking about, where like in his fight with Arlong, when you hear Luffy talk and you look at like Luffy during the fight with Arlong, like when they're in the map room and stuff, it looks like if I were to breathe wrong, he would cave my skull in. Like Luffy does not mess around in these parts. Like, and that's a big thing. Like I feel like, and it could be direction, it might not be acting. I know the guy Iñaki is actually younger than One Piece itself. He's only 20 years old, and he was auditioning at age 17. But so I don't know if it's like an acting range thing. It could be direction. It could be a showrunner that doesn't know how to write Arlong Park. It doesn't matter. We don't know.
Right.
We don't know all the factors here. But we were missing that in Arlong Park specifically.
Okay.
Yeah. There's also
So-
one other thing about Luffy's character that kind of upset me, and that was when he was questioning his decision making as a leader, as a captain.
Oh.
That was so bad. Like that just like I almost wanted to get up and walk away because I'm like, do you know Luffy? Do you know Luffy?
So out of character.
And he was like upset, like he was kind of being remorseful and feeling guilty for whatever was happening to Zoro, because like Zoro was like unconscious and stuff. And I'm like, I just sat back and I was like, this isn't Luffy. This is not him. Like it just would never occur to him that he would never doubt himself. Not once in the 1,000 episodes out there has he ever once doubted himself in any way. He's just so positive. And he really
And
you
also
know that
maybe
part,
lacking critical thinking.
yeah, that too. Like he doesn't have the ability to comprehend that like he's not good at something. He's just like, what do you mean? Of course I'm good at it. Of course I'm captain. I'm captain. And like there's this one part where like Zoro says like I don't have to believe in him because he believes in himself. That's how you would describe Luffy. So having that section where he was being doubtful just did not fit at all.
That's interesting. I wouldn't like that's something I wouldn't have caught. So I'm glad that you're both here because you're both like noticing different things that I would not have even thought about as someone who hadn't seen that stuff before. For me, I thought like the characters were very well handled. Like I like the characterization of all of them. I think that they were. I love the actress that plays Nami. I thought that she did a really good job. The actor who does Zoro, I thought was good too. Yeah, I thought that all of like the main pirate crew, even like Usopp, who I don't like, but like I said, you're intended not to like him. That's part of the story. Like I still think that actor did fine as Usopp.
Well, he's too hot to be Usopp. Objectively. Post time skip Usopp, I don't know, but like pre time skip Usopp's kind of he's kind of a little too hot. And Taz is a little too ripped to be pre time skip Sanji. So.
Yeah, Sanji's backstory I thought was really cool. It was also really cool to see the Zoro's backstory and like what happened with his friend. I was told about a difference that I didn't know. Like in the story, they say that his friend died of an accident, but we don't find out what the accident was. But apparently in the anime, like something else happened to her. So I was like, okay. So I'm curious why they changed that, because I don't think that and maybe it's just because it's a sensitive subject in America. So, you know, like 13 Reasons Why came out and that had like a lot of issues around it. So maybe there was just a feeling like maybe we don't want to say this type of thing or have this type of subject matter in One Piece. But
for reference for people who might be hearing that and not connecting the dots, Zane, who we were talking to, mentioned how in the anime they say that she fell down the stairs, and in America that's something that's often associated with abuse. So people tend to assume that maybe she had an abusive relationship with someone, maybe her father, probably not based on the way. Actually, no, but that was an assumption made, and that led to her death. In Japan, it's more associated with not wanting to talk about suicide, and that is why that's meant to believe. She also has, clearly she does have some depressive issues, as we talked about with the backstory. So I just want to give context to that. And I think I agree, maybe they didn't want to get into such heavy subject matter for that and just allowed it to be an accident.
Right.
Because they did try to even play it off in the anime itself.
Okay. Gotcha.
I don't think she's dead.
Yo, you don't think she's dead?
Oh, you're one of those One Piece iceberg crazy conspiracy people.
They didn't show a dead person, so
No body, no crime.
No body, no death. Sorry.
Oh my god. Well, 1,000 episodes later, she's still alive. We're gonna see her. I swear. But yeah, I think all the actors did a really good job. I liked seeing the backstories. And I guess in this, they kind of covered all of the crew's backstories in some kind of way, right? Yeah, we got to see Sanji, Nami, Usopp, and even Luffy and Zoro. So, like, if you think about it, like, for what they had as far as time goes, they covered a lot, because that's backstories of 5 main characters within 8 episodes, while still tackling whatever's happening in the present day, for the present day storyline, and things with like Luffy and his grandfather, which I didn't see coming. That was a shock to me that was his grandfather that was chasing them.
That was not in the original part, by the way. They added a lot of the grandpa stuff, and that's not in the early part of the anime.
It happens
what?
later. Yeah, you meet him
Yeah,
later.
that's way later.
And
Way
Kobe.
Like 400, 500 episodes later, actually.
Wait, what?
Yeah, they also added like a lot of Kobe stuff that's not in this.
Okay, because I was just like, this Kobe kid, I, like, as much as I seen, like, just bits and pieces of One Piece, I was like, I don't know who this kid is, and that's weird for me, because I at least normally see characters and know, like, I know who Nico Robin is, I know who Smoker is, I know who, like, Ace is, I know who these characters are, despite not watching the show before or reading the manga, but it's because, like, when you're in just the anime manga zeitgeist, you can't not experience these characters in some way. So even though I don't know their stories, I know who they are. So when Kobe popped up, I was like, who is this and why don't I know who this is?
I mean, okay, don't get me wrong.
Like they're pretty important.
Kobe is like a reoccurring character.
He's important.
Yeah,
Okay.
he's important.
Yeah.
Yeah. And he and so is Axe Hand's son. They're both actual characters. They both come back. And I actually enjoyed what they added for them, and I liked seeing them getting to be able to see those two characters become brothers. I really liked that they did that.
Does it happen off screen in the
Yes.
anime?
Yes, it does.
Oh.
Yeah.
So this is one of those.
It was like a bonus like thing I didn't ask for that I got. And the things that they used Kobe for, I think it was a good choice to, use him as a way to connect the tissue of the stories, with a character that we all really love and that we know comes back later. So, I enjoyed that. I thought they did a good choice by using that and still keeping close to the source material.
Right, and I don't want to be overly negative. I just have very strong feelings about Arlong Park. I do think overall they did a really good job, and I know we're running long already, and obviously you guys will decide that, but I would hate to end this without talking about the set design.
No,
and how
yes.
the set design is insane in this show.
Yes.
Insane.
So they actually built the ships.
Yes.
Which is insane, like you said. That's crazy. It's nutters. Like, what?
Okay, not my terminology, for sure.
But absolutely, right? Like, they built all these ships. Like, they're real sets. It's not like green screens and stuff. And that's saying something, especially for, like, in today's day and age where everything is kind of filmed on, like, a stage.
Yeah, there's a lot of love and care put into something, and then Arlong Park happens.
Yes. And I also want to say they did an amazing job keeping the characters as close as possible, minus the stuff that we had mentioned about Luffy. I think they were so close to like really representing the characters.
Yeah, like Sanji feels so close to his like anime manga self. Like that's like a 1-for-1 Sanji.
Nice. Okay.
Minus the really built abs pre-time skip. Yeah.
Yeah, he's more slender and
yeah, exactly. He's more slim fit early on.
Zoro's the beefy guy.
Largest chest in One Piece.
Oh my god.
Factual.
Okay, good to know.
Well, I don't know, Frankie. I guess Frankie.
No, they have the measurements out, but Frankie's a cyborg. That's a little different. I think for like normal sized people, it was in an SBS that he has like the largest chest measurement.
Yeah.
In One Piece out of normal sized humans.
Yeah.
Wow.
Oh, and the actor that plays Zoro.
Ooh.
Yes, I understand. Every time he was on screen, even I was just like, well then. All right, dude, you can get it.
Okay, I didn't go there. I just said, ooh.
But yeah, and there's a nice little nod at the end where the last episode, they actually play some of the theme from the anime when they're all the crews together on the ship and they're like putting their foot on the keg or whatever.
Barrel.
Then the barrel, yeah. Then they actually start playing the music from the Japanese anime opening.
Yes.
And I was just like, oh, that's kind of cool. That's nice. And then it like led into the song that they had made for the show. So I like that they still had like moments like that where they could still like give shout outs. And I'm sure there was other like Easter eggs and stuff that I wouldn't see that maybe you guys caught, but it seemed like for the most part, like maybe outside of Arlong Park, that there was a lot of love and attention put into the show and a lot of like respect for the source material. I also know that they did work with Ichiro Oda for this show. So, and I don't know if Kentaro Watanabe or oh my god, I'm saying the wrong name. Oh my god, Shinichiro Watanabe worked with them with Cowboy Bebop as much, but I mean, I think that whatever the difference was, it absolutely does show with One Piece.
I mean,
I won't say every part of Arlong Park is bad,
Right.
but yeah. Cheryl, please.
I knew that that they were gonna do that as soon as I saw the first episode, and they didn't use the theme for the credits. So I was like, oh, they're gonna throw it in as like part of the soundtrack at some special moment at some point. They have to. There's no way they can not do it, especially since they actually do that in the show, in the anime. So like it was expected. If they didn't do it, then they don't know what they're doing. So.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, that makes sense.
Like when they wrote Arlong Park.
Yeah.
So, I guess since we've been going for a little while, I was just curious if there's any other kind of like final thoughts that you guys had that you wanted to get off your chest about the show that we hadn't mentioned so far. Oh, Cheryl.
I just wanted to mention that I liked that they had a little bit about the Baroque works, which is you know, kind of a lead in. It's like a hint at something that's going to happen later. And it's actually that one scene that you see with Zoro fighting that guy from Baroque Works. I think he was 7. That came from
Mr.
like
Seven.
Mr. 7.
The
Yeah.
guy with like crazy mohawk.
Yeah,
Okay.
that. So he's not actually in the anime. He's mentioned.
Oh.
It's off screen.
Oh, he got off screen in the anime?
Yeah.
Yes, it's
Oh.
like Zoro mentions it, and then later
Yo, that's cool.
you'll see. But that is one of my favorite arcs, one of my favorite stories. So I'm really excited that they mentioned Baroque Works, and I just can't wait for what's to come.
So, what do you guys think the end game is for this show? Because clearly the anime and manga are still ongoing, and there's no sign of them stopping. I don't see that this live action show going for another 10 years. So, what do you think their overall plan is? Like, how do you think they're going to try to tackle this?
Well, I think on one hand, it's way too expensive because I know there's metrics for how you calculate what's profitable in streaming because it's definitely difficult because it's going off of, you have to kind of cross-reference viewership with new and existing memberships to see if it correlates to actual money. It's kind of more of a theoretical sense than it's a direct cost thing, kind of like box offices. So it's very strange how they're going to do it because you're trying to say and justify something that costs more than Game of Thrones. But the nice thing about what they're getting to, where if like they handle the next arc that Cheryl and I both tend to like, and arcs moving forward, is that a lot of them are such big momentous things, like on a much grander scale than Arlong Park, that if you're not going to continue them, if you end at the end point of those arcs, and I wouldn't want them to do the next section in one season, I feel like it has to be 2 seasons, or else they're going to run into another Arlong Park thing where they shorten it way too much, and I think that they've done a terrible job at that arc. But ending at those endpoints of those arcs is such a big and momentous thing. You could just have an ending and say, and they continue their journey, and it's not like super dissatisfying at that point because of the scale of future arcs. So I think that's like a built-in thing.
I agree. There's I know like Will can agree that when we get to the Myrrh part, I am not particularly expecting or interested in seeing them do that and as a live action because it would just be way too complicated. It would be so hard to justify like making it anywhere close to what they did for season 1.
Does it take place entirely underwater?
Yeah.
You said mer people, like mermaids
Yes.
and stuff.
It would be too hard.
And Yeah, and Ray in the chat, yes, Cheryl and I definitely would both want Alabasta to be taken care of at least, which I think would need to be seasons 2 and 3 because there's so much lead up, especially with like Drum Island and things happening beforehand.
Yeah.
And if you want to only do 3 seasons, that's not a bad stopping point.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, if they're gonna do like the Smoker stuff and the Cloud City stuff, and then, yeah, because that's in, yeah. I hope they do. I can see them skipping Cloud, but I hope they do Cloud because I really like the boss fight. That's my favorite boss fight.
Oh, it's actually super story relevant now. So yes,
Yeah,
um,
it is. It's like
I
it's a nothing
personally-
island.
oh, yes. Water 7 and into the CP9 arc is my favorite section, but that's a lot of stuff between now and then. So we'll see how much, because it is Netflix and they don't like to run things for very long.
Yeah,
So
yeah, but we'll see. Yeah, Cloud City is pretty wild. So.
Okay. Well, I mean, I feel like for me, I'm probably going to try and at least start watching some of the anime. I'll probably start from Arlong Park. It doesn't sound like I would miss out on too much. It sounds like the live action would have covered most of the information I would need to know going into Arlong Park. So I might start watching the anime from like maybe a couple episodes before the Arlong Park, or like what you guys call the Walk on Arlong Park.
well, that's a moment. Arlen Park is the arc, yeah.
Okay, like before that begins, and then slowly just see where it goes from there. And maybe what I'll do is I'll switch to reading the manga because then I could go through it a little faster. It's so much. But I will say that as a person that has never experienced One Piece before, this did get me wanting to like at least see some more about what this world is like, or how this writer is like handling these characters, or why this writer is even praised as one of like the best writers in shonen manga of our time. Like people really respect his work and really talk and praise how well thought out his storylines are. So I want to be able, I do want to get to experience why that is.
It's so good. It's so funny. I love it so much.
So, all right, but I think we're going to go ahead and call it there. So, that's what we thought about the live action One Piece, with a little bit of comparison and talking with the animated version as well. But what did you guys think about the live action One Piece? Did you enjoy it? Did you like it? Did you think that it was a faithful adaptation, or did you kind of feel like they messed it up, or are you just kind of upset with Arlong Park, or did you even like Arlong Park in the live action? What have you thought about this and more? Comment below, let us know. And we are down there. If you can give us a like, share, and subscribe. Even if you don't, though, I've been Chris. This has been
Will.
and
Cheryl, Tony Shopper.